This lecture is dealing with kind of a narrow topic in the text from chapter 21, and it's only going to deal with imperial Islam. There's a lot in that chapter, of course, but typically I think Islam is usually in the shadow of some of the greater European empires. And, that's just kind of how it happened historically. But I think it's worth focusing on Islam. So I'm going to only deal with the three major Islamic empires discussed there in the text and address some of their key figures. So this won't actually be a very long lecture. Of course, you'll have to read the book and know all that information that's in the chapter, but this lecture will only deal with imperial Islam. Now, there are three major Islamic empires that were created in the late 15th century and early 16th centuries. The Ottoman Empire in Anatolia, Syria, North Africa, and Arabia. And then you have the Safavid Empire in Iran and the Mughal Empire in India. It was therefore a period of triumph for Islam. The three major empires all seemed to turn their backs on the egalitarian traditions of Islam and set up absolute monarchies, however. Almost every facet of public life was ran with systematic and bureaucratic precision, and the empires developed a sophisticated administration. So to take a closer look, we'll start with the Ottoman Empire. The principal cause of Ottoman greatness throughout the epoch was the empire. It was that the empire was ruled by a great man. Great not merely through his being called on to act amid combinations of favoring circumstances, but a great man in himself, an intelligent ordainer of the present and a self-inspired molder of the future. The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, whose conquests in Christian Central Europe and the Muslim Near East, as well as upon the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean, brought his nomadic state to the level of a global superpower at the dawn of the modern age. And this Sultan is Suleiman, and it is related to the name Solomon, but his name is spelled much different. Suleiman became a famous lawmaker. Interestingly, he enforced Sharia or Muslim law fairly, and where Sharia did not apply, he designed new laws that treated everyone equally. He supported the arts and architecture and was himself a distinguished poet. Like many rulers, however, Suleiman could be cruel. In the Ottoman Empire, the eldest son of the ruler did not automatically become heir. Suleiman killed two of his own sons in order to ensure they would not challenge his third son for the throne. Throughout his rule, he did not hesitate to kill anyone whom he thought might be a threat. And the Safavid Empire, coming second here to the Ottoman Empire, was founded by Shah Ismail. And he was the founder of the Safavid Empire. He was the son of Shaykh Haidar, the leader of a religious order established by Shaykh Safi Galani. The Safi orders were closely linked with Sufism, generally a more inward-looking and Gnostic form of Islam, often referred to as kind of mystical Islam. The Safavid rulers claimed lineage from the Prophet Muhammad through Fatima and Ali. Moreover, they also claimed lineage to the Sassanids, the rulers of pre-Islamic Persia. By the age of 20, Shah Ismail had asserted control over Iran and was challenging the Ottomans in Asia Minor. He was defeated at the Battle of Chaldiran by the Ottomans, who then engaged in a campaign to kill the rebellious Shi'i in Asia Minor. Accounts vary, but tens of thousands of Sufis were killed in this campaign. The Safavid Empire survived the defeat of Chaldiran, was fortified by Shah Abbas, and became firmly established in Iran. Because occupants of Iran were predominantly Sunni before the period of the Safavid rule, Sunnis were widely persecuted during the establishment of the Safavid Empire. As the Safavid rulers consolidated control over the region, they helped establish an orthodox Shiite hierarchy that legitimized their authority. Shah Abbas was the last great Shah of Persia. Abbas I suppressed the Turkoman chieftains who had dominated Iran militarily and politically throughout the 16th century, as well as their Qizbalashi supporters. The first Shah of Persia to grasp what was happening in the Western world and to understand its significance for its empire, he actively sought to modernize his army and to open his country to outside influences. Dynamic and ruthless, he forced entire populations to settle in Persia and made his capital, Isfahan, one of the storied cities of the Muslim world. For all this, his irregular family life and his inability to arrange for a suitable successor did much to undermine his life's work in the decades that followed his death. And then there's the Mughal Empire, which I think is one of the most interesting. Supporting an estimated 100 million people and producing cash crops and textiles for export, the Mughal Empire, which was ruled from 1526 to 1707 by a series of remarkable men, was the greatest of the Muslim gunpowder empires of the early modern era. It outstripped by far the Uzbek state of Central Asia with its 5 million people, Safavid Iran with its 6 to 8 million, and the Ottoman Empire with its roughly 22 million people scattered across its Asian and European territories. Indeed, at the time, the Mughal Empire was rivaled only by the Ming Empire of China. From the perspective of the present, the Mughal Empire led to major geopolitical outcomes. The Mughal Empire reached its peak in the 16th century under the famed Emperor Akbar and maintained its vitality under a series of rulers for another century. Then the dynasty began to weaken, a process that was hastened by the increasingly insistent challenge of the foreigners arriving by sea. The Portuguese, who first arrived in 1498, were little more than an irritant. 2 centuries later, however, Europeans began to seize control of regional trade routes and to meddle in the internal politics of the subcontinent. By the end of the 18th century, nothing remained of the empire but a shell. But some historians see the seeds of decay less in the challenge from abroad than in internal weaknesses. In the very nature of the empire itself, which was always more a heterogeneous collection of semi-autonomous political forces than a centralized empire in the style of neighboring empires. But a little bit on Akbar the Great, and we'll draw this to a close. Akbar the Great was born October 14th, 1542 in Pakistan, and he died the day after his birthday in 1605 in India. He was Indian, and he was an emperor, and he had various names. Akbar Abu al-Fath Jalal al-Din Muhammad. That's a nice mouthful. 1542 to 1605, like I said, was his lifespan, and he was the emperor of the Mughal Empire in India. Akbar's subjects were permitted a remarkable degree of religious tolerance and freedom. The empire, he tried to build a bridge of understanding between Hindus and Muslims and to create a new eclectic religion of pure theism. He collected translations of the holy books of all faiths and held regular religious disputations in his palace at Fatehpur Sikri near Agra. The participants also included Jews, probably from Persia, Afghanistan, or Kurdistan, as well as Hindus, Jains, Zoroastrians, and Jesuits. The rapid spread and development of what we see as imperialism produced a rich Islamic civilization which reflected religious and cultural synthesis and exchange. With significant assistance from Christian and Jewish subjects, Muslims collected the great books of science, medicine, and philosophy from the West and the East and translated them into Arabic from Greek, Latin, Persian, Coptic, Syriac, and Sanskrit. The age of translation was followed by a period of great creativity as a new generation of educated Muslim thinkers and scientists made their own contributions to learning in philosophy, medicine, chemistry, astronomy, algebra, optics, art, and architecture. The cultural traffic pattern was again reversed when Europeans emerging from the Dark Ages turned to Muslim centers of learning to regain their lost heritage and to learn from Muslim advances in philosophy, mathematics, medicine, and science. So, though not often given the credit that they deserve, I think, as far as their contribution to intellectual history and philosophy and things like that, I would definitely say the imperial Islamic movement of this period is more than just noteworthy. They had some very powerful things going on that are worthy of attention. And so there you have it, Imperial Islam, the Ottoman Empire, the Safavid Empire, and the Mughal Empire, and just a little bit of a look there at that contribution in the humanities.